Hi. I decided to check if it's possible to complete this game using only assistants as the crew. Assistants are worse than specialized crew members because they don't have good skills and are practically the worst at everything. So having a full crew made entirely of assistants sounds like a great idea. When starting a new game, the characters, captain, engineer, and mechanic are automatically selected and cannot be changed. So here's the plan. Accept missions, reach the next station while completing them, recruit every assistant possible, and beat the game this way, removing the starting crew along the way. So, let's begin. Here are the first people who are on this ship, and they will soon disappear once I get the first assistants. After a short conversation, which always happens at the start of the game, you receive initial tasks that must be completed in order to even set sail for the next base. So I quickly completed them, took on some missions, and sailed onward. The crew's first mission was to transport minerals, which won't be much of a problem, and thanks to it, I'll be able to recruit the first assistant. I assigned different tasks to the crew, so they wouldn't get bored during the journey, while I personally took the ship's helm, since bots don't handle it too well. Upon reaching the station, I went to recruit the first assistant, the character who would later take command of the team and lead it through all obstacles. There was also a second assistant available, but that one required a reputation the crew didn't have. Currently, getting rid of the entire crew and leaving only an assistant on the submarine isn't a good idea, but I did it anyway. I'll get rid of the captain later when more assistants join the crew, so they can patch up any potential hull breaches while steering the submarine as assistant, who has such amazing skills that they definitely won't let that happen. While wandering around the station and searching through bins, I noticed a small room with a diving suit and oxygen tanks. So I decided to steal them or borrow them since I'd need them more than the station would, and I'm sure the station will manage just fine. Of course, things didn't go smoothly. I got caught by a guard while carrying the diving suit toward my sub, which is obviously not suspicious at all. However, I wasn't going to give up and decided to try again. A guard got in my way, so I had to sneak past him by climbing a ladder to the upper floor, where guards can't search you. I managed to get the tanks onto my ship. And these won't be the last things I snatch from other stations. I also bought rods that were on sale. The ship wouldn't run out of energy, as well as a tool belt to increase my inventory. Before heading to the next station, I encountered a cult and managed to buy 2 knives that were also on sale. Breaking my legs in the process, I rummaged through a bin that had a surprising amount of interesting items, which I gladly took. I bought revolver ammo and bandages that were also discounted, as well as uranium, which is useful for cheaply recharging fuel rods, without having to buy new ones, though the submarine doesn't have a constructor for that yet. But when I switch to a ship that does, they'll definitely come in handy. After finishing the last missions, I was approached again by the same crew member as before. Even though they were no longer in the crew, so I ignored them and sailed to the next station, taking on 2 missions. Now with only 2 crew members, I assigned tasks to the new person. And without major issues, sailed to the next station. Upon arriving at an interesting-looking station, the assistant decided to carefully think over a plan of action to make her work on the submarine more efficient. I was supposed to go for supplies, but a strange person stopped me, apparently having some kind of issue with the station or something else. So totally not ignoring them, I was stopped again by a group of curious people asking what working on a submarine is like. I told them it's great, 100% safe, and that we definitely don't become food for crawlers. And then I went on to recruit another crew member. Of course, something stopped me again, a person who wanted to travel with me to the next station along with someone or something called Rex. Asking about it, basically nothing. I got an interesting offer. I'd earn 3,000 credits if I transported them to the next station, which shouldn't be too much trouble. After exploring the station, grabbing cool items from bins, and failing to buy another assistant, I ran into the cult again. Not only did they give me a mission to transport their crew to another station, which is completely normal and won't cause any problems at all, but there was also a weird incident with one of the cult members who wasn't ready to accept a gift. Learning a bit more about this cult, I talked to an animal in a cage and accepted 2 more missions. It turns out that the person who wanted to travel with Rex had actually brought a friendly Mudraptor onto the sub. I wonder where they found it and how they kept it at that station. After earning credits from missions, I got information to meet the head of security in administration, so I'll drop by there later when I find where it is while handling other important stuff before setting off to the next station. Once again, I was stopped by a group of people with the same question as before, so I gave the same answer. Looks like the crawlers might have quite the feast. I improved my skills. I couldn't buy any assistance, so I accepted some more missions and ended up in a place that was definitely not administration, but some kind of corridor. I took a task from a guard to plant some microphones in the crew quarters, a nice way to earn extra credits. But if I get caught by another guard, he won't be able to help me. I planted the microphones and the guard confronted me, but thanks to my skills, I managed to manipulate him. Additionally, I found a tool belt in one of the rooms and decided to check it out. Inside the tool belt were bike horns, masks, and oversized shoes, and while I was looking through it, a group of clowns ran up to me. I still had the bike horn in my hand, so I panicked and honked it. Turns out the clowns liked that and let me keep the bike horn. I made it to the room where the clowns are. I got an extra mission to transport a few clowns to a nearby station with a warning that they might go crazy. I have to admit, their room is quite spectacular. I bought gear and supplies, and heading deeper, I could only accept one mission, a simple one: transport Coalition personnel to the next port. Right at the start of the journey, the submarine was attacked by crawlers. They're weak enough to be easily defeated. With only one crew member with me, we had to split tasks evenly, though I had to do most of it myself. I inserted a fuel rod so the sub could stay operational, and after avoiding another group of crawlers, I reached the station. Once again, I ran into a group talking about the same submarine-related stuff, so I picked the same dialogue option, basically feeding the crawlers by answering their questions. Finally, I was able to buy a new crew member to help on board, but this was also the moment I could switch control to the former assistant, who officially became the captain. I removed the original captain from the crew, and from now on, the assistant would command a crew full of clueless assistants. I upgraded my character, bought some submarine improvements, and picked up 2 missions, one of which was to kill hammerheads. That could be tough, but doable, especially with 2 assistants who know exactly what to do. After killing a few crawlers and reaching the target location, several hammerheads immediately attacked the sub. We hit the seabed hard, damaging the sub, while hammerheads kept slamming us, trying to drive us into the ground. After defeating all the hammerheads and harvesting their organs, I repaired the submarine and collected my credits at the station. I managed to recruit another assistant. The crew was starting to grow. After accepting a few missions, the person responsible for granting travel clearance refused to let me through unless I paid 2,000 credits. I tried a different method instead. First, I took some oxygen tanks and came back for a diving suit, which I managed to sneak onto the sub. The next goal was to get some C4, one of the most powerful explosives in the game, along with a timer detonator, and plant it under the reactor to sink the station. But first, I needed to get those items. The current station didn't have them, so I headed back to a previous station while completing side missions, including activating a beacon. To activate the beacon, you need a fuel rod, and to repair the sonar, so I took what I needed and went inside. A small problem arose at the beacon. Inside was a husk that required serious firepower to take down. I shot it from a distance with my revolver. I tried looting it, but it suddenly lunged at me and bit me. I was likely infected. The priority now was to kill the husk, activate the beacon for extra credits, and deal with the infection. I got a warning that something was in my throat, confirming the husk infection, so I had to hurry. Back on the sub, I searched for anything to help and found a metal container with something inside. Opening it, a small crawler jumped out. I killed it, found a pipe, and lit it, hoping it would slow down the infection. Eventually, I found something that could stop the infection, and used it, hoping it would work. I returned to the beacon station, repaired the damaged systems, started the generator, and began heading back to the submarine. On the way back from the beacon, more crawlers started biting me. I barely made it back to the sub and began firing the coil gun, blasting the creatures. Despite trouble with crawlers and mud raptors, we somehow made it to the station, completing 3 missions at once. After doing a few side events, I took on more missions, bought revolver ammo, sold the loot I took from the last station, and checked for any available assistance. But there were none. At one of the vendors, I noticed and bought a timer detonator I needed to destroy the station that denied me access to deeper zones. I was still missing the explosives though, so I bought a coil gun upgrade for the sub. A previous vendor had weaker explosives, but I figured they might work, so I bought all the charges available, along with more detonators, and set out toward the station I planned to destroy. On the way, I had a mission to hunt a giant crawler. I approached its general location and saw a group of crawlers on the sonar. I jumped on the coil gun and started blasting the monsters. After killing one of them, another crawler tried regenerating by eating the corpse, but I got it and completed the hunt. I looted the corpses, and soon after, mud raptors arrived, far more dangerous than crawlers, but the coil gun handled them well. Arriving at the station, I spent skill points for myself and the crew, bought supplies, and finally found another assistant ready to join, so I accepted him. Realizing I still wouldn't be allowed deeper, it was time to begin my genius plan to blow up. Flood the station. Step 1, remove all diving suits and oxygen tanks, ensuring that when the station floods, no one survives the pressure and no one can repair the hull breach. The station had 2 storage rooms on opposite sides, each with diving suits and tanks. I had to clear them all. Technically, the station staff had breathing masks, but those wouldn't help against the deep-sea pressure, so I wasn't worried. After confirming there were no more diving suits left, it was time for the next step. Grab a detonator, load it with UATUs, and plant it beneath the reactor, setting the timer long enough for me to escape before everything floods. Sure, there are other ways to destroy the station, like messing with power boxes or cutting through walls with a plasma cutter, but those don't really work. Power boxes can't be tampered with, and even if you use a plasma cutter, you'd need to find a spot to weld shut, so no one could get in to fix the breach. Not practical. So I used the method that definitely works, since the station is destructible. The fun little device went off, but it was too weak, barely did any damage. I needed something stronger. Something that would take out the whole room or even the entire station. Something that couldn't be quickly repaired. Or I could just plant a bunch more explosives and hope for the best. And it worked. The reactor was destroyed, the room partially flooded, but it still wasn't enough. Only one section of the station was completely underwater, and the water level wasn't high enough to do more damage. So, I headed to a different station that should have what I needed. Arriving without issues, I got permission from the faction to go deeper. I found stronger explosives, more timer detonators, and even incendiary charges. I grabbed everything and headed back to finish what I started, taking a mission to hunt a giant crawler along the way. At one point, mud raptors attacked. One broke into the submarine, and I had to shoot it. I managed to kill the weird creature without much trouble. Back at the target station, I once again collected all the diving suits and tanks, avoiding the guards. I placed all the charges around the station, One guard started searching me, saying someone was stealing supplies. Definitely not me. With all the explosives in place, I activated them and waited for the show. After a little while, everything went off. I suited up and went to check on the station. There was water everywhere and dead cultists. I also found the station manager, who somehow survived the explosive I planted nearby. A moment later, high pressure built up in the station, and since no one had a diving suit, no one could fix the hull breaches. The pressure would kill them. So the plan worked, but one thing remained: loot the station and eliminate all the remaining characters, including the manager, to see what's in the safe. Looting the entire station with no one to stop me, I found a lot of cool stuff like cultist robes, which seemed to have some interesting synergy with the husk infection, some weird alien genetic material, and tools with various sensors and materials. There was so much stuff that I had to use a metal crate and make several trips just to take literally everything from the station. I found a strange knife that one of the cultists had, probably the one they used to greet each other, so I took it. Once I looted everything I could, I had to deal with the characters who had somehow survived the explosions and water pressure. While trying to trade with a merchant who survived, hoping he had a detonator with a timer, I accidentally picked up a canister lying on the ground, even though I had already stripped the whole station bare. He didn't have a timed detonator anyway, so I had to approach things differently. So I took another knife and a revolver. When the manager managed to move a bit deeper into the station, I used the opportunity and started shooting him. I had to stop the bleeding. I started shooting at another character, but they seriously injured me. When I killed the last character on the station, they critically shot me. So while still trying to help them, in my own way, using my knives, I started to return to the submarine, bleeding, with no bandages, to get some help. But halfway back, I lost consciousness, so I had to switch to another character to go assist. After my main character got a professional treatment from an assistant who had no idea what he was doing, probably giving me 5 times the normal dose of opium, I switched back and went to check the safe. To open the safe, you need the station manager's ID card, which I happen to have. There was literally nothing inside except revolver ammo. That's such a valuable thing that it has to be stored in a safe, and I gladly took it as a perfect reward. I couldn't go deeper from the station. I just couldn't, as if the station was still considered functional. So I chose another station from which I could descend deeper and headed there. At some point, something big started swimming toward the submarine. Besides a swarm of crawlers, there was also, a giant crawler, and nearby, apparently, a hammerhead shark as well. The giant crawler disappeared from the radar, and the submarine started sinking, crashing to the bottom. While repairing, I noticed my crew spotted something on board that shouldn't be there. It was a regular crawler. After fixing the entire sub, we managed to sail away and safely reach a station. I distributed experience points since the whole crew leveled up, and I managed to hire another assistant. Since this station offered Tier 2 submarines, I decided to buy one, but I needed more credits. I couldn't go in every direction on the map anymore. Some paths were too deep for my current sub, so I could only choose one route. Now the crew looks really powerful, all assistants. What could possibly go wrong? While clearing mud raptors for a mission, we were later attacked by creatures called tiger threshers. One of them made it inside the sub, but my revolvers were too powerful for it. After fixing the damage and finishing off the last creatures attacking the submarine, I reached a station, resupplied, and picked up more missions that offered a lot of credits. And, wait, what's that? Something weird is on the sub. To get rid of it, I used a plasma cutter. While it worked, the thing was producing a toxic acid cloud, and the plasma cutter wasn't strong enough to destroy it without using up the entire supply of fuel tanks. So I tried something else. There were some unused incendiary charges in a metal locker, so it was the perfect time to use them, without destroying the entire sub at once. But before I could even do anything, a massive golden hammerhead crashed into the front of the submarine. This one was stronger than the other hammerheads, and showed up alongside regular ones. And the prisoner died, failing the mission. Suddenly, the golden hammerhead returned. It was going to be a tough opponent, but whatever. I went back to trying to destroy that strange thing at the back of the submarine. And then something else interrupted me. Something much bigger than any of the previous creatures. Something the size of the submarine. I had no idea what it was. So I quickly started backing the submarine toward the station, but it began chasing us fast, until it finally gave up and returned to whatever depth it came from. I noticed the golden hammerhead nearby, a perfect chance to collect some valuable loot. I returned to deploy the incendiary charge, and finally get rid of that thing on the submarine. I hid the fire extinguishers so the crew couldn't use them while I deployed an incendiary charge. I grabbed a fire extinguisher, tested if it worked, then ignited the charge and burned away most of that weird stuff. It was now only left in the ballast tank, so I quickly made my way to the station. One crew member got crushed by water pressure just before we docked. At the station, I had enough credits to buy a Tier 2 submarine, all thanks to this mission. I was attacked on the station, but thanks to my revolvers and help from a security guard, the situation was quickly resolved. I looted the attackers, sold their stuff immediately, played around with the objectives a bit, and after resupplying, I decided to dive even deeper and took on new missions. That was a mistake. Exploring the new sub, I found it had a railgun, perfect for hunting bigger creatures in the current missions. It also had a deconstructor, which meant I could finally break down all the junk collected from previous stations. I marked items for deconstruction and assigned an assistant to handle it. While traveling, a mud raptor breached the sub, but it was killed quickly. I reached the mission to kill the crawler swarm, handled it quickly and efficiently. Only one objective remained, the Moloch. As we approached it, that massive thing appeared on the radar and charged straight at us, slamming into the sub and damaging it. I cranked the coil gun capacitor up to max recharge rate to ensure it had enough power. The Moloch was attacking from above, where the coil guns were, not below where the railgun was. The next hit from the Moloch knocked me off my feet. When the Moloch's health dropped to half, we were already descending deeper. Eventually, it backed off, but the sub was nearly completely flooded. The pressure was so high that I needed a diving suit, which was located on the opposite side of the submarine. To avoid being crushed by pressure, I climbed a ladder and waited a moment before quickly swimming toward the suits. I was injured and couldn't swim fast, but I made it and put on a suit. One of the assistants was high on opiates and had 1 HP left. The sub's leaks were all fixed, but it was still flooded and couldn't move. When I went to check it, one of the assistants was teabagging another. Despite being drugged up, I repaired the engines and pumps to get the water out of the sub. Finally, the submarine started moving again, but then it returned. The Moloch, now almost fully regenerated, attacked again and began damaging the hull, flooding part of the sub. Coil gun ammo was being used up fast, and the Moloch was like a sponge, soaking up everything we threw at it. We completed the mission, but it was exhausting for the entire crew. I collected the loot and returned to the sub. My injuries were so bad I couldn't run anymore. One of the assistants went down, critically wounded, so we needed to reach a station quickly. As we approached the station, I started treating the assistant to stop the bleeding, while the crew was shooting at a target attacking the sub. Due to lack of medical supplies and the severity of the wounds, the assistant died. The sub lost power, so when I went to investigate, the next room was completely flooded, and a crawler swam out and attacked me. There was a second one in the room next door, and the sensors opened the door right as the crawler was behind it. It bit me twice, and the high water pressure forced me to retreat, but I didn't make it and died. I switched to another character, took an upgraded knife, and started stabbing and slashing the crawler. The fight was exhausting. I killed it, but I lost consciousness and started bleeding out, slowly drifting to the bottom of the sub. So I switched to one last character, the only one who could save the situation. Despite being dizzy and low on HP, I injected alien blood, hoping to restore some health, but it didn't help. I started losing health instead. Then another crawler entered and bit me, causing me to pass out. I was also infected with the husk. The mission failed, and the crew never made it to the next station. Crawlers, some of the weakest creatures, finished the job, tearing the whole crew apart. I underestimated the power of the Moloch. It was so strong, it sank the submarine twice and regenerated, damaging the ship and the crew so much that even regular crawlers could finish us off. And so, the crew of all assistants made it so far and ended up right here. Maybe they could have made it to the very end. And after playing through this entire run, one thing is certain. Always appreciate and prepare for every mission. And I appreciate that you watched this video to the end. Thanks for watching.